Hello, I'm Michael Canadas with the Grovian Doll Museum and Carmel Doll Shop. Today we have a little bonus feature for you. One of my favorite doll companies of all time as a collector and a museum curator and a dealer are the dolls by the Lenci Company. Just recently we received an amazing collection of dolls to add to our inventory, and I just felt that we couldn't miss out this opportunity to share them with you, because it's not every day that you get this amount of really great dolls at one time. Those of you that are familiar with Nancy Lazenby's book on Lenci, many of these examples are photographed in that fabulous book. So if you don't have that book, you should go online and get it as soon as possible. So I'm going to just give you a little background story on the Lenci company. Elena Scavini is the founder of the Lenci Company, and like a lot of women and men, she fell into it. It was born of grief for a lost child, and she put her energy towards doll making and trying to perfect doll making to really just please herself. And it ended up turning into a colossal business. Timing is everything. What I find interesting is when you look at Lenci dolls, they're very modern looking in the aesthetic, but now many of them are approaching the 100-year mark. She was at the right place at the right time. When she started making her dolls, cinema was coming into common enjoyment. Giacomo Puccini was writing his masterpieces, Madame Butterfly, Turandot, La Bohème, etc. The Ballet Russe was in full force with all the Degliev's Ballet Russe, with all those fabulous colors and a new way to present ballet productions. So she became friends with many luminaries. So I'm going to start with just sharing with you some of her fabulous pieces. So I'm going to start with this doll that's on the cover of Nancy Lazenby's book, and this is the 110 girl doll. Now, what I think is interesting about this face is, to me, it looks like a child Gina Lollobrigida. So it's a typically Italian face. What is interesting is that Madame Lenci, as she became known, was not Italian. She was actually German. So I think that a lot of her perfectionism in her dolls, that may be genetics from being a German born, but her style is absolutely Italian. So I'm going to start here. When the dolls were first made, she had to experiment, and the early dolls that were made on her kitchen table are very simplistic. By the time we get to this in the, I think 1927 it came out, she's sophisticated. She's used molds to make the heads and various like tarlatan type pieces for the inner part. But what made the dolls really work is she discovered the fabric that would be known as Lenci fabric. But what it was millinery felt. And remember, she's starting in 1918, 1919. Hats were just part of everyday life. And she found this very lightweight felt that was stretchable, moldable, and cuttable. I would love to see the die cuts that they had to cut these felts, because if you look at all of these pieces, these are done with die cuts that they would press into it, and it would cut the pieces out. Now, if you wanted to have a die cut made today, it would cost you about $150. So when you think about every single little cherry or flower, that is an individual die cut. These were not done cut out by hand. They were pressed out. So these are some of the earliest pieces, and I also want you to pay attention to this. This one's from the 20s, early 30s. Look at that plaid design. Those are all individual pieces. I mean, it would be very, very hard, if not impossible, to do this today. But remember, sewing machines in the early last century had a lot more attachments than we realize. So they did have things that made it easier for them. So we're going to go into, as I said, her things were happening. Puccini's play Madame Butterfly, Turandot. So you have Orientalism happening. At this time, people were starting to travel all around the world on tours. And this grand tours, this would have made a perfect little gift to someone as a souvenir that you could probably buy this in a ship. And then, of course, you had the miniatures. These go by two names, mascots or miniatures. They come about 7.5 inches to 8 inches tall. One thing I want to point out, when you read in books about Lenci's that the sizes, you can't always go by that because they're still handmade, so there can be a variation in size. But again, look at all of these die cuts. Now, I kind of got out of order. I want to show you the first. This is from 1929, and this is the first year of the miniatures or mascots, and they have the surprise-eyed face. They call it the surprise face. Now, what I think is really cute is once they started making the dolls, and you have all these die cuts, they started to make all kinds of accessory pieces. And you could buy these flower pots, and they had five available. And what I think is interesting is they had a great sense of humor because one of the flower pots has dead flowers in it, which I think is really kind of cute. So this is 1929. So if you think about it, the miniatures were made from 1925 until the 1960s. And there really isn't much difference in the quality. The quality, even though the company sold, the quality continued. But we're going to go back in time because this is a real rarity. This is the 400 series, and this is a long-legged 1920s girl with her Art Deco dress and, you know, very short, her little silk bloomers. This is a really amazing doll. Not many of these exist today. And then again, look at the work to make that very geometric design. So this would be very modern, about the same period. Then you have the very cute thing. Remember, cute was very popular. You had movies with Mary Pickford and Dorothy and Lillian Gish. And Madame Lenci was loved the cinema, and she loved popular culture. So this would have a great appeal. And look at the shoes. I think they're hysterical. And note the stockings. Those are typical Lenci type stockings that you'll find. And Organdy started to become something that she used really regularly. And I think that in a way, Organdy was a lot like the felt to manufacture dolls, because once you starch it, stiffen it, you can really control it pretty well for production. Now here's another famous girl from Nancy Lazenby's book, and this again is another 110, the same as the cover girl, but look at the accessory that she has at the bunny, and the bunny is really amazing. Look at the seams for the legs. I mean, the creativity in that firm is just beyond belief. And then the little daisies. Now, this is not mint in the sense of mint. As a collector, when I'm collecting Lencis and for the museum collection here, I have a scale. The older they are, the more relaxed I am. The younger they are, the more particular I am. So in a case like this, I would be okay with this. Now, that being said, these dolls are getting very close to being 100 years old. So, I mean, we have to judge them on being 100 years old. But it really is genius how they put the whole thing together. Now I'm going to show you some of mine and David's personal favorites. And that's the 300 series. And I believe they came out in 1927. I may be wrong about that, but around that time. And they have an infinite variety of costumes. The easiest to find would probably be the Sweater Boy, which I love them, and I'd love to have one in every color combination. But that might be impossible because there's an infinite colors combo. But this is like right out of an early gangster type movie with the overcoat and the leather shoes and the tie, and I think this is a newsboy cap. But let me show you something too that I think is really amazing, and we can see it on this one. The hair is all hand-rooted into the head. And if you go online and Google Lenci manufacturing, there are some period films of them doing this. So this came as a boy, and it also came as a girl. But in my mind, the face is always a boy face. And then we have some really rare ones. We have the Italian police officer and the drummer boy. And these again are also, I mean, these are a tour de force, I feel, in costuming. So this is another favorite of mine, and it's actually a 10-inch version, same mold, scaled down, of the 300. And this is a little boy dressed as a fascist. Now, you're probably wondering, was Madame Lenci a fascist? I do not believe that she was. The company that she kept would be really very much against fascism, but we also have to remember the very concept of fascism when this doll was made was new. It was a new experiment. They didn't really realize that whether it was going to work or not. And, basically, they were in business to sell dolls, and this had a certain amount of cute factor, not unlike a American Boy Scout. I'm not comparing fascism to Boy Scouts, but this is a historic piece, and it would really work very well if you were going to tell the story of things that might be controversial. But it's a beautiful doll. Then I mentioned the Ballet Russe and the influence of that, and this is really right out of the Ballet Russe. I mean, this would be part of Degliev's lineup of his ballets. Now, I should mention one thing that's really interesting about the consumer for the Lenci doll. In the 1930s, if you do the math, most of the people that were adults grew up in the golden age of dolls. So they were doll girls. They grew up, and suddenly they're shopping at the City of Paris and San Francisco store, and they see these art dolls, because that's what these really are. Well, I want one of those because I love dolls. They're very modern. They're different than a bisque doll. So there was a whole line of pieces, and this is a perfect example. This is a Pan, who is a mythical creature, and these weren't meant for children. This was a good luck piece or something that you would put on your boudoir. This was made for a long period of time, even though today they're hard to find. If they're left out in the sun or whatnot, they get ruined and they got thrown out. But look at his little diapers. I mean, they're really cute. And there's a couple of versions of this, and what differentiates the different versions is the little hair on the legs. This is mohair, like a mohair teddy bear, and they also come with like curly lamb on there. Not lamb, but it looks like curly lamb. So this is a really, really amazing art piece. These are called fetishes. There is a whole group of these that are just amazing characters. Now, the accessories, I'm going to go back to the mascots, because look at these accessories. You've got a gun, you've got a rabbit, you've got something in his pocket. It's a duck, I think. So this is an 8-inch doll. Look at all of those little tiny accessories, and the little top stitching is just amazing. And I mentioned that, of course, cinema was very important to market the dolls at that time. And this is Jackie Coogan. Those of you who don't know who Jackie Coogan is, he was, in our time, he was Uncle Fester in the Addams Family. But he was a child star, and he was discovered by Charlie Chaplin. And this is the kid who is a little bit of a, degenerate because he's smoking. But look at his newsboy cap. That is not printed. That is all felt to create that design. So this is one of the early mascots or miniatures. This came out in 1930. This is a little later for him. The kid came out earlier than that. But we have to remember that films, it took them a while to make it around the world. So by the time this got to Italy for Madame Lenci, it was probably very current. Now, the thing about Lenci's is there's a whole lot of faces, whole lots of numbers. It could get very confusing, but it's something you have to work at, and I go by. If I like it, I buy it. Now, here's one that I'd like to buy. David will let me. Now, look at that. This is a miniature, and it's a little boy in a romper suit. I have no idea how you could even turn this inside out to make this costume. It is just amazing. But just to put it in context, miniature with miniature, it's really reduced size. The head is the same size, but it's the body that's been reduced, which this works because children have typically big heads, let's face it, when they're little. And this one is absolutely spectacular. I've been in Venice and I've seen these guys walking around like this, and it's just something to see. But here it's been preserved in miniature. So this was a part of everyday Italian life. And speaking of everyday Italian life, look at these two cuties. So we have a pair, and it's a boy and a girl, and they also have accessories. And if the accessory wasn't made of felt, it would be made of wood. And so here we have the little original piglets, and they're both sewn into place. But these are just cute little, look at the spots on the pigs. They look like little eggs, Easter eggs. I would imagine that this, in Germany, pigs are good luck for New Year's. I don't know about Italy, but as I said, Madame Lenci was German, so this would be very delightful to her. And here, street clothes. So this is actually a very fashionable 1930s dress. The Lenci Company went on to make children's clothing, pottery, many, many lines. But this is fashionable clothing for the time, and it is amazing. You will find as you're collecting that Lenci's, there's less of the fashionable clothing than there is of the costumey type of provincial costumes and historical costumes. There's less of them. And this one is just in amazing condition. This model's known as the Lucia face, and it's one of my favorite faces. I have a few. Then after the company was turned over to new owners, then we start to see some different fabrics coming in. So this is the second period, and they're starting to use less felt, and it's cost saving, but it's also keeping up. So the new fabric to come along after the Second World War was rayon. So this is rayon, and a lot of people think of rayon as a synthetic. It is not a synthetic. It's actually made out of bark, I believe. So it does work. Now, what you don't want to do is if you have something with rayon, do not ever press it. Now, there's no need to press this one because it's in perfect condition. And the Lenci dolls had tags. So this is what you'll find regularly on the dolls are these tags. The earliest ones have buttons, kind of like a stiff button in them, somewhere in them. So, and just about the same concept is here, now we have the Organdy coming into play. This is in the 30s. Remember, Shirley Temple was the biggest star in the world in the early to mid 30s, and she wore all her organdy dresses. And if you want to appeal to children, you have to stay current. So here's a perfect example. But this is no easy feat because all those strips are all sewn on. And then look at these roses. They're just amazing. Now, the one thing I want to say about this company, there are lots of doll companies, but very few of them actually, from start to finish, create something that is so unique. Yes, there are other cloth doll makers, but the material that she was using and how she was forming it and pressing it and cutting it was so revolutionary at the time. It was so different. But very soon after that, you get copycats. So some of the copycats, I think, and here's one, they're actually fascinating to collect. And these don't necessarily cost a whole lot of money, but she changed an industry, and it went, France started making felt dolls, all over Italy, other companies started making felt dolls. So it really was something groundbreaking. Now, the thing about Lenci's I love is the color. So whatever your color palette, if you like pastels, you like primary colors, you like, it's all there. Anyways, I think that, and this one, I just saw her yesterday. I didn't even notice that we had here, but here's something that's really unusual, is it's absolutely simple. There's no extra decoration on it. And they might have decided that we need to have some dolls that aren't all, over-designed, just simple. But again, it's not simple. It's not simple construction. There's a lot of detail to this. And I would put this one and this one in the late 20s or early 30s. So I hope you enjoyed this little tour of the Lenci company. It is something that they're really worth collecting and they're worth learning more about. You know, the company is very soon going to be hitting its 100th year anniversary, and I look forward to adding more to the Grovians collection, and I hope you add more to yours. And tune in to our update because you get to see more images of these with a little more information. So bye-bye, doll friends.